The sewer grate swallowed my ID with a faint, mocking clink, and Karen's laugh was the kind of sound that could curdle milk. She stood there, her designer purse swinging like a guillotine, smug as if she'd just won the lottery by ruining my day. I was just a junior architect, 27, hustling to make a name in a city that chews up dreamers like me. That morning, I was rushing to a meeting with my firm's biggest client, yet a billionaire named Karen Vanderholt, who was building a mansion so extravagant it could have housed a small nation. My boss, Mr. Chun, had trusted me to deliver the updated blueprints. My first real shot to prove myself. My wallet, with my ID and work pass, was in my hand as I jogged across Fifth Avenue, dodging taxis and tourists. That's when Karen, waddling out of a boutique with a latte in one hand and her phone in the other, barreled into me. "Watch where you're going, you little nobody," she snapped, her voice dripping with disdain. Her eyes, small and mean, sized me up like I was gum on her shoe. I stammered an apology, but she snatched my wallet from my hand, rifled through it, and before I could react, tossed it into the sewer grate at her feet. "Oops," she said, smirking. "Maybe next time you'll respect your betters." I stood frozen, my heart pounding as my ID, my work pass, my life sank into the city's underbelly. "Why would you?" I started, but she cut me off, already dialing her phone. "Hello? 911. There's a suspicious man harassing me." She lied, her voice suddenly trembling with fake fear. She pointed at me, her diamond rings glinting. "He tried to steal my purse." The bystanders, a young woman in a hoodie and an older man in a worn jacket, gasped. The woman muttered, "What the hell?" But Karen's performance was Oscar-worthy. She clutched her purse tighter, playing the victim like she'd rehearsed it. I felt the world tilt, my career flashing before my eyes. Without my ID and pass, I couldn't get into the office, couldn't present the blueprints, couldn't prove I wasn't some random thug Karen was painting me to be. The cops arrived in minutes. 2 officers with stern faces and hands on their holsters. Karen spun her tail, gesturing wildly, calling me dangerous and unhinged. I tried to explain, my voice shaking, but the sewer grate was silent. My evidence gone. The officers didn't arrest me. Here was no proof of her story, but they told me to move along and warned me about causing a scene. Karen smirked as they left, then strutted away, her heels clicking like a countdown to my ruin. I missed the meeting. Mr. Chin called me, furious. "Where are you?" "Ethan, Karen Vanderholt's team is here, and you're AWOL." I explained, but it sounded insane. Some rich woman stole my wallet and called the cops. He didn't buy it. "You're on thin ice," he said. "Fix this, or you're done." I spent the afternoon at the DMV, getting a temporary ID, my stomach churning with anger and humiliation. Karen's face haunted me, her smugness, her entitlement, the way she'd weaponized her wealth to crush me without a second thought. But as I sat in that fluorescent hell, an idea sparked. Karen Vanderholt wasn't just any client. She was the client, the one whose mansion was my firm's biggest project. And I'd spent months on those blueprints, every detail etched into my brain. I knew something she didn't. The project wasn't finalized. There was still a way to hit her where it hurt. Back at my tiny apartment, I pulled up my laptop and dug into the project files. Karen's mansion was a $2.3 billion monstrosity, marble floors imported from Italy, a private theater, a rooftop pool with a retractable glass dome. But the land it was built on, that was the key. I'd done the environmental survey myself, a grunt task no one else wanted. The site was on a floodplain, and I'd flagged a drainage issue that could sink the whole project if not addressed. Karen's team had ignored my report, too busy fawning over her to care about technicalities. But I hadn't sent the final permits yet. Those were still in my control. I called my friend Lila, a paralegal with a knack for finding dirt. "I need everything you can get on Karen Vanderholt," I said. "Fast." Lila didn't ask questions. She heard the edge in my voice. By midnight, she sent me a gold mine. Karen's financials were a house of cards. Her fortune came from a shady real estate empire, propped up by loans and investor money. The mansion was her crown jewel, a symbol of her untouchable status. If it fell through, her investors would panic, and her empire could crumble. The next morning, I walked into the office, my temporary ID barely getting me past security. Mr. Chen was in a meeting with Karen's team, her assistant, a wiry guy named Todd, and a lawyer who looked like he charged by the syllable. I didn't wait for an invitation. I marched in, dropped the environmental survey on the table, and said, "This project is dead unless you address the drainage issue. I flagged it months ago, and you ignored it. The city won't sign off on the permits." Todd scoffed. "We've got engineers. We'll handle it." But the lawyer's face paled. He knew I was right. Permits don't lie. I pressed harder. "The floodplain data is public. If I tip off the city inspector, they'll halt construction. Investors will pull out. Karen's name will be mud." Mr. Chen stared at me, then at the survey. "Why didn't you bring this up sooner?" he asked. I didn't blink. I tried. Her team dismissed it. The room went quiet. Todd started typing furiously on his phone, no doubt texting Karen. The lawyer excused himself to make a call. I'd planted the seed. That afternoon, I got an email from the city planning office. An anonymous tipman had triggered an emergency review of the mansion's permits. By evening, the news broke online. Vanderholt Mansion project faces major delays over environmental concerns. Investors were spooked. Stocks tied to Karen's empire dipped. Social media lit up with rumors, some calling her a fraud, others mocking her swamp palace. Karen called me the next day, her voice venomous. "You little worm," she hissed. "You think you can ruin me?" I stayed calm. "You tossed my ID into a sewer and lied to the cops. I'm just doing my job, making sure the city knows the truth." She screamed something incoherent and hung up. I smiled for the first time in days. The fallout was swift. The city halted construction pending a full environmental audit. Karen's investors bailed, unwilling to sink more money into a cursed project. Her empire, built on bluster and borrowed cash, started to crack. Lawsuits piled up. Contractors, suppliers, even her own lawyers turned on her. The mansion, half-built, sat abandoned, a monument to her arrogance. I didn't gloat. Okay, maybe a little. But mostly, I felt relieved. I'd stood up to someone who thought she could crush anyone in her path. Mr. Chen called me into his office a week later. "You saved us from a disaster," he said. "That project was a liability. You're getting a promotion." I nodded, thanked him, and went back to work. The city moved on, but Karen didn't. Last I heard, she was selling her jewelry to cover legal fees. Her name a punchline on every news site. The young woman in the hoodie from that day found me on social media. She'd recorded Karen's stunt with my wallet. Too far to intervene, but close enough to capture the truth. She posted the video online. Captioned, "This is who Karen Vanderholt really is." It went viral. The world saw her for what she was, a bully who thought money made her untouchable. Turns out, it didn't. Sometimes, the smallest act of defiance can topple a giant. Karen learned that the hard way. And I learned something too. Never underestimate the power of knowing the details. The city's still here, humming along, while Karen's dreams lie buried in that sewer grate, right next to my old ID. The end.